Come here. The student loan forgiveness that's at the Supreme Court right now is probably not going to get passed, which means it's going to be unconstitutional. That means that you're going to have to start paying the full price on your student loans as of September. It's not going to look too good. I'm being honest. Let's get to it. I know what you're thinking. You are hoping and praying to God right now that somehow the Supreme Court is going to allow Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness. And I'm here to tell you it's not going to happen. Now, we can go into various reasons as to why this is not going to happen, but for the most part, it's probably going to be deemed unconstitutional. And the reason why it's going to be deemed unconstitutional is because the power of the purse in this country comes from the Congress. It doesn't come from President Biden, right? And it definitely doesn't come from his Secretary of Education based on a law that they passed during the Iraq War. Okay, you can look that up for yourself. But I'm here to tell you, to be completely honest with you, that it's not going to be forgiven, which means there is no $20,000 payment that they're going to make to you to forgive your student loans. It's not going to be a $10,000 one. Chances are you're going to have exactly what your balance is right now. So how can you start preparing for it? Look, the one thing that I absolutely 100% believe and know is that at the time September 1st comes around, student loan repayments are going to start. There is no further extension. They have already told you this. The Secretary of Education was in front of Congress and literally said the other day that they're not going to extend the student loan forgiveness plan, right? They're not going to extend that repayment anymore. They're going to start in September. They just passed the budget, right, in the House and in the Senate, and Joe Biden signed it. One of the things that they signed, one of the criteria that they signed, was that it's now that the student loan repayment has to start in September. I can't make this up. You can look it up yourself. One of the criteria when they pass that budget for the next 2 years is that the student loan repayments have to start as of, I think, September 1st or 60 days after June 30th. You can do the math yourself, but that's basically the end of August. So just say by the time September comes around, you're going to start paying your student loans. How can you address this? How are ways that you can go about preparing for this? Because it's coming. Number one, call your service provider. Make sure you know what the necessary information is to log on to start making those payments. Make sure that you secondarily open your budget. Look at what your budget is telling you can afford, right, in terms of your student loan payments. Maybe they can tell you in advance ways that you can reduce it, extend it, refinance it, whatever the case is. But it's time for you to look at your budget and see what you can afford. Now, let's say, for example, your student loan payment was $400 a month. Chances are, over the last 3 years, you've probably spent that $400 on other things, whether it be buying a car, having a baby, buying a house, whatever the case is. Chances are that money is already being spent. So you need to open up that budget and see where you can make room to start making these payments. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, this is going to be a painful process. I am here to help, but I promise you, this is not going to be a good look for many people. One of the things that I think is important, though, is that even if there is some level of student loan forgiveness, the majority of people are still not going to be prepared for it. But not you. That's why you're watching this video. You're watching this video because you know that you're going to still have to make those payments. You know that it's still going to be on your behalf to make those payments. You know that chances are they're not going to forgive the student loans. So what I want you to do is open up that budget. I want you to see what you can afford. I want you to start preparing for it. I want you to start cutting back your expenses. I want you to start living below your means. I want you to stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. Okay? On this channel, we're going to be really honest with you. I know it sucks, but I'm telling you, as somebody who's debt free, it's completely worth it. I'm telling you, as someone who made their mother debt free, that it's completely worth it. I'm telling you, as someone, when I go outside, I'm not complaining about money because it's completely worth it. It's not that I'm rich. It's that there's a certain level of freedom without having to owe somebody money. We can talk about all day about whether or not those were predatory loans by the federal government. We could talk about all day whether they should have approached this differently. We can discuss whether or not the Biden administration knew in advance that this was not going to pass in the Supreme Court, and whether they did it just to buy your vote, which they did. But at the end of the day, as of right now, the student loan forgiveness, in my personal and professional opinion, is not going to be upheld by the Supreme Court. It's going to be struck down, and those payments are going to start as of September 1st, at least. All right. It's going to start. So please, please, please start preparing for it. Start talking to your significant other if you're living with somebody and you both are going to have to start making these payments. It's coming. And the one thing I'll leave you with is this. This is probably going to be the trigger for the recession, if you really want to be honest with it, right? Everybody's been spending, and if you notice, the trend has been now that people are starting to go into debt to take care of the necessary household activities. Before, people were going into debt to go on vacation, to buy stuff, to go outside, whatever it is. But now people are going into debt to do their regular groceries, right? That's usually one of those telltale signs that people are starting to run out their savings. Well, what are you going to do when folks now have to start paying $400 extra that they don't have in the first place? It's a messed up situation. This is not a good situation. This is why I'm making this video now. Please get prepared. Do not depend on the Supreme Court to forgive your student loans. Open up that budget, see what you can afford, call your service provider, make sure you have all the necessary information, figure out if there's ways you can refinance, defer, whatever the case is. But those student loan payments are coming, and chances are that forgiveness is not going to happen.